Hello everybody, this is Mike Gall from the Comic Book Syndicate. Welcome to a very special episode. So what we're doing here today is we do a audio podcast called QUASAR QUA-NOLOGY, okay? And for the first time ever, we're actually going to film it to kind of like plug the podcast so people know it exists, okay? So if you're interested in seeing this, you can listen to it on Spotify and you can listen to it on iTunes.
Spotify.
Yep. So anyway, welcome everybody to QUASAR QUA-NOLOGY number 10. Once again, because of listener demand, we've brought back Marshall Sfalcin.
Hello, Sfalcin.
Sfalcin.
Or Sfalcin.
Sfalcin.
I can pronounce it however you want.
My teacher calls me Falcon.
Falcon?
Because he can't pronounce it.
That's if you're going to have a last name that's mispronounced, it's a cool way to mispronounce it, right? So anyway,
Spanish.
Monty, you were also on a previous episode.
Yep.
And as you just found out, that episode is available on Spotify and iTunes, so you can tell all your friends, okay? So, this is QUASAR QUA-NOLOGY number 10, okay? And today we are covering Marvel Team Up number 81. Marvel Team Up was a Spider-Man team up story, okay? This podcast covers all of the chronological appearances of Quasar, our favorite superhero, right? Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about... Now, one thing you said, Monty, before we started rolling, you said that out of the three of us, you think you're the only one that got this comic, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't think your dad got it?
We mean not out of the three of us.
Previously telling me.
Between my daughter and Monty and myself. Most definitely. If so, he claims.
Okay.
Because my dad, he's like, what? And he said he's reading it on his phone. He's like, what?
Yeah, I didn't...
I don't get this.
Okay, so let's start with that. Marshall, why don't you tell us why you didn't get the comic?
Well, when you first sent it to me, what I do is I do a perusal. And then a perusal of torture. I go, oh my God, 22 pages? Oh God.
Okay.
Okay, and then I look at how many words there are. I'm like one of those like illiterate kind of, there are a lot of words in this here comic book. And I saw a lot of words and I was going, oh, these guys, they want to over-explain stuff they don't need to explain. And I knew it. And so I started reading, and it looked great. Like the art is great. I like the art.
Herb Trimpe, folks. Herb Trimpe.
Yeah, it's good art, and it looked exciting right away, like ready for action. And I started reading, and then there's a lot of. I guess this is what comic books do, but it's kind of it's strange that they do this. Sometimes you read I don't know what the technical term is for the boxes or the balloons. The panels. And it'll read, I'm saying where the writing is when it sets the scene for you. The fact that it's a comic book and there's a panel with pictures should help you, should have it have less writing. For what's going on.
Sure.
Spider-Man is doing this, doing that, flippity flops, exams of like. Okay. Yeah, but why are you writing down what I'm looking at? Spider-Man follows this truck and anyway.
We'll get to specific examples in a minute. Now, Monty, before you even get into your notes, what was your first impression? Did you pre-count the words? Did you look at the page numbers, or did you just start reading and that was it?
Well, like. In between, I kept on looking at the page numbers, and I'm like, 18. I wonder how many's left.
Oh, no. That's not a good sign. Are you saying you didn't enjoy it?
I liked it, but I'm like, will this go on forever? And I'll have to keep on writing. But so, my first impression was like, this is just going to start. I didn't even know where this starts at. Like, anyways, like, the first page is like, Spider-Man goes here and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't even know like of course there's a comic book before that has to continue the storyline.
Yes.
And it keeps on going. But I didn't know too much about it because I didn't read the comic before it.
That's a good point. Now first, before we continue, I want to point out to the listeners and the viewers how old you are.
I'm 9 years old.
9 years old.
9.5.
Okay, so what grade are you in?
5th grade.
Okay, so I started reading comics around grade maybe 2 or 3, and that was one of the things that I noticed. I'm like, it starts in the middle of the story, so you're like, did I miss something? Should I have read the issue before? And then a lot of times they end a little bit ambiguously, so you're like, do I have to get the next one? Is the story done? You know what I mean? Which is kind of good and kind of bad. But there's a term for when a story starts in the middle. I'm sure you know this term.
No.
On media res, right, Julie?
In medias res.
In medias res.
Never heard of that before.
It's a Latin term, right? It means starting in the middle of the story. So basically, it's like I'll use an
Well, a
example.
lot of films do that,
Right,
right?
like Star Wars. You just start out and they're in the middle of a firefight, right?
Wow.
You don't explain anything. You just jump in, right?
Right.
And then you figure it out as you go along.
Right.
Yeah, like in Star
And then they'll
Wars,
do flashbacks if
it
they need
says-
to, and then.
Right.
and then it does the credits, and then after that you just see a spaceship flying through space.
Right.
Well, most of the comic books that I've ever perused, the comic books that we used to read, episodic.
Yeah.
It'd be episodic, just so it'd be
Anthology.
like, it'd be like one story, 5 pages, and if it sucked, it was over fast. If it was good, you're
Okay.
like, oh, that was a good thing. And then you go to the next story. So whether horror anthology or mystery anthology or war anthology, those are the things I could tolerate. But every time I'd pick up a Superman, or you just get these as kids, and it'd be like right into it.
Yeah.
And
Well, because they assume you know who he is. They assume
who these
you know
villains
Clark
are,
Kent.
what's
Yeah.
going on,
Right.
and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, obviously you know who they are, but if there's a backstory, it could start you off disinterested, right? That not necessarily for this comic,
Sure.
because it starts right away with action.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Monty. I'm assuming you probably like the plot more than your dad. So do you want to tell us the
Obviously.
basic? You want to tell us the basic plot of this story?
Yeah. So basically, it's a plot where Spider-Man is just, doing his normal thing,
Swinging around.
swinging his webs around town, and then he comes across this truck, and he says that truck looks suspicious. I'm gonna go take a peek on what's inside. And he looks inside, and then Quasar comes on top, saying, "You looking for something, Spider-Man?" And yeah, and then
And you know Quasar from the other story that we did, right?
yeah,
Okay.
the serpent crown.
He's an okay guy.
And then basically we find out that Quasar's guarding something that's inside this thing, right?
Nitro.
Yeah.
And somebody materializes out of thin air. Do you remember what his name was?
Lightmaster.
Lightmaster, right.
And like I was just gonna say, like I like how they actually kind of like put in a villain that can change form, like Clayface.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't really usually put villains like that in. Like I only put like a few. Like back then, what was the Clayface's name?
I don't know who Clayface is.
Clayface from
man.
Batman.
Like the old one. His name started with
Hagen?
an F.
False Face.
Freddy Falseface. Yeah.
The one from the Batman TV show you made.
Yeah.
Should I pull up my brass knuckles and start beating you nerds up? Like, for knowing all this stuff?
What's wrong with no? This is good.
I gotta beat you guys up. You're nerds. Okay.
This is educational, father.
Yeah, this is okay.
Okay, so keep going. So then, what else happens in the story? So, Lightmaster. We find out Lightmaster is he takes over Quasar's powers, right? And he
Yeah,
sort of
he
absorbs them.
he absorbs his bands.
His quantum bands.
His quantum power bands
Right.
or whatever, and then like Lightmaster wants to become a human again. He wants to so bad, so then he has to go to this weird lab place and get a wheelbarrow and
What was the name of the lab?
57
Light. There was a name for his lab.
I don't know if
The
there's
light
a-
bulb?
Lightmaster's lair. I'm not sure what it's called.
It wasn't.
It wasn't his lair. He robbed it. He robbed the
He went and started
place.
smashing stuff, or something. But he was so desperate, he wanted to become human again.
You know what? You know what?
love-
Why couldn't he just? This is what. If he could change form to anything, couldn't he just like stretch his hand out and create that giant machine with his hand?
This is something where you try not to think about it too much, because
Right.
then it all falls apart, right?
Right.
Exactly.
But I just want to get to the end, because then it's really cool. What happens is Spider-Man ends up helping out Quasar, and what happens is Quasar realizes, he feels kind of guilty because he realizes that Edward Lansky, he just wants to become human again.
Right.
So he feels kind of guilty. So he's like, well, why don't we just help him out? So they help him become human again, and then as soon as he materializes in his physical body,
Spider-Man
he says,
knocks
Lights
him
out,
out.
Buster.
yes, Spider-Man knocks him out. He's like, I'm human again. You
But he
must
said
be
his spider
to
said he
protect
was
me."
tingling again.
And
Like,
he's
he's
just
like, there's danger.
He punches him out. Lights out, Buster. And Quasar's like, why did you do that? He was too disoriented to cause any harm. Oh, yeah? He was just about to zap you. Trust me, my ever-reliable spider sense warned me of the danger.
Every time they defeat a villain or a criminal, they use a nickname or a pun or an insult like "Lights out, Buster."
Yeah, a little pun, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah.
type pun. So then, it's funny, it's
hasta la
interesting,
vista, baby.
because then they split up, right? And Spider-Man goes his way, and as Spider-Man is swinging away, he says, what a bozo. I usually find something to like about most of these Joes I sometimes join forces with.
punch
The
his face.
difference
That's what I want you to call your friends.
I'm always imagining.
Whoa.
I'm always
What would-
imagining who's the guy. I'm not a big like.
Stan Lee?
I want to put him in a headlock.
Why?
Every time I hear verbiage like that, like I'm gonna make these people sound like everyday teenagers. Who that bozo? Like it just
This
gets
is
me.
how teenagers talk. Right?
I know, but it's things that disturb me about like the things that bother me when I'm reading this, even though it's a comic book, is like
Comic books are stupid.
Crazy stuff is happening when Spider-Man goes, "I got to go back to class."
Yeah.
like what?
That's Peter Parker.
Hey,
But like-
so and so's defeating the
what I wanna
world.
say-
There was a big battle. Oh shit, I'm late for class.
Yeah,
like
you got a date.
It's
You got a class. You
ridiculous.
got a job
Like
to get
you know
back
what? I'm Spider-Man. I think I'm going to be skipping out of school the rest of my life because I got a lot of work to deal
No,
with.
he's still got a.
I know, but it's cock.
He's got his degree.
It's
Okay.
I have
blown.
something to
Okay,
say.
but I get it.
Okay.
He's got groceries to buy and
Exactly.
and he's got to pay his
Wait,
light
before
bills.
you say anything, Monty, I just want to finish this point because Spider-Man was kind of criticizing Quasar, but then Quasar says, "A strange fellow, that's Spider-Man. He acts so unprofessional, so undisciplined.
There you go. I like.
Oh well,
Quasar.
I'd best turn Lansky over to the authorities." So basically, they don't like each other. So that's how the story
But
ends.
I kind of agree with Quasar a lot more than Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's a teenager. Like, what would he know?
Terrible.
Good point.
Like I think Quasar's a lot more smart than just a dude that got bit by a spider.
Could be.
And
Well, obviously
But,
here it
he's
is.
al- but Peter Parker's also he's a sort of a learning science at this point. So he's
Yeah.
a science-minded
he's
fellow.
he's a nerd.
But anyways, as a a guy who used to write,
Okay.
and will write again. That's like that thing at church, and he will write again. He has written, he will write again. That I would have. You could start him off in school.
Okay.
And
And
then,
then-
but now that he's dealing with this thing, I don't think he should go back to class until he's done this thing.
they
Because they
said-
mentioned that. And then Spider-Man went back and he had to take this other course. Like, no, stuff is going on. Things are weird.
but they-
His spider sense would be tingling
But
constantly.
I think you have to understand
What happened to Nitro?
Hold on, wait. But you're
And then he
jumping all
made this
over the
big
place.
screw
Hold
and
on.
then drilled into the ground. And
Okay, wait. Let's just talk about. This is what makes Spider-Man interesting: is that he is trying to fight crime, but he also has to
Trying
be
to have a
class.
normal life
Yeah,
and
so
is-
that
He has to be
creates a
two
conflict.
places at one time.
Right. That's why I don't like when people think they can just replace all these characters, like replace Peter Parker with Miles Morales or replace Bruce Wayne with Azrael.
Who's Miles Morales?
Miles Morales is like the new Spider-Man. Like there's this new movie called Into the Spider-Verse, and there's this kid called Miles Morales, and he meets Spider-Man, and all these other spider people
Right.
come out from
I'm
different.
disinterested already.
It's a good
Different-
movie. It's a good movie, right?
But it's Peter Parker was always funnier and better than Miles Morales.
Well, you know what I would do then? The way my brain would work if I were to whenever I see these things, because I don't mind otherworldly situations that happen.
Okay.
But I'm always trying to find a way to satisfy people like me that are critical.
Okay.
And to say, okay, how if there was a character for Spider-Man's character like the aunt that or an uncle
Ant-Man. Oh.
or somebody else that knows that he's Spider-Man.
Okay.
To say things like, Peter, maybe it's time you should forget, like, you have these incredible powers, and maybe it's time that you forget about school and try to
And focus
on what you are
defeating
best
these-
at right now.
Okay,
This
but
is an incredible gift.
There's
Defeating
one.
Instead of him
Big boy
going to
or-
classrooms and buying popcorn and
See-
taking off, like, you know what I mean? It's
There's one
like
problem, though.
It's like Superman going on dates with Lois Lane. Like, there's a lot of
Like-
stuff he's got to deal with here.
Like I think Spider-Man should focus more on defeating Big Louie or
Louie.
Who's Big Louie? The
like
Simpsons?
no, I was just making fun of like criminals and like Big Louie or Big Johnny.
Okay.
Oh, that's all the names of these guys.
Okay.
Like,
But here's
especially during the
But here's
80s.
the problem, though: is if he forgets about his school or work, how is he going to make money?
Oh,
Well, he should just,
Well-
say, I'm Spider-Man, and you should collect. You want me to continue fighting crime? Although if they're
But then he wouldn't
pay
be
me to fight the crime. I'm a bounty hunter. Just pay me
just
to
say,
fight
hey,
the
you know
crime.
what? You want to donate to Spider-Man helping your thing? You have
know what?
Spider-Man boxes that you donate. Oh, this guy's great. You donate like $5 here, $10 here, and,
no.
and then Spider-Man swoops down,
He could be
grabs the
No,
cash
see-
out of the box. It's like,
Superheroes refuse to take money for the
oh well,
services.
this
could
guy,
be-
I think he should. In his case, Superman,
like
no, 'cause he could-
Spider-Man. He could be a bounty hunter. Like they could pay him to go fight crime. Like, he could be like a Boba Fett.
Dude, that's actually a very good concept.
He could be like
Hey,
a Boba
There's
Fett.
already a hero called Hero for Hire. Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. He gets paid.
Okay, so he's a bounty, but I'm saying someone like Spider-Man to make money
Like-
on the
like-
side is a
like-
bounty hunter.
Give him $5.
So at the beginning of every
and I'll go punch that
That's good.
guy
Okay, anyways,
out.
beyond that, yeah.
Okay, so let's take.
He's a
That
nuisance
light
in
back
this
there
Quasar
is
comic
mesmerizing.
here.
Mesmerizing.
Veer it back. Let's talk about the comic book again. Okay, we're gonna veer it back. So I want to get Monty. You've got a whole bunch of notes here, right?
Yeah.
Just like last time. Do you want to talk about what is your next note that you have to talk about here?
Okay. I think, like, I like how they incorporated real people at, like, page 2, was it?
Okay.
Like Christopher Reeve.
Right.
It's also kind of funny because
Well, let's explain.
they probably paid him for his name to be in the comic book.
I don't think you have to pay for one mention.
Okay, but
Well, we don't know.
We don't know for sure, but I
we
doubt
don't know. But Christopher Reeve did act in a DC movie. He acted as Superman, so it's kind of like Christopher Reeve being in Marvel, him acting as Superman in DC. It's kind of what's that called? What's it called?
It's like synergy or crossover.
Synergy.
I just want everyone to explain. So Quasar is jumping into the back of this van thing, and a pedestrian says, "Bobby, look, it's Christopher Reeve." And the other guy says, "Nah, Chris has a red cape." So it's kind of like a joke because he's thinking this guy looks like Superman. So that's the joke, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
The fact that they
It's a
mentioned
bird.
it.
It's a plane. It's
Christopher Reeve.
Superman.
right, exactly. Now I want to point out on this panel. You can see this panel here. The coloring's terrible because look, the van is the same color as the road, so you can't even tell what he's doing in this panel. I thought it was junk. But anyway, that's just.
I like the art
For a
though.
sec- for a sec-
I like the simple
For a
like.
sec, I thought he was jumping into a dumpster.
Right, right.
I
Like,
enjoy
into a
these
secret lab,
comics with that
Let's
are
talk about the air for a minute.
crappier. Like I don't know. It gives me. It brings back. I guess it's like soul food
Nostalgia?
or yeah, it's nostalgic
food?
comfort
That's
food.
soul food.
Well, soul food is like it's
chocolate bars?
comfort food.
Like chocolate bars at
Not
McDonald's.
quite.
No, but it is.
Soul-
It's like
No, that's
like
comfort food. Soul food is like black
no, but but that
New Orleans food.
no, but it's
I
not
love
because
New
like
Orleans food.
it's.
Huh? Southern, whatever.
No, but
love
it doesn't matter. It's let's say
oysters.
let's say
I
you're
actually love
African American.
Yeah.
And that this is the comfort food that you grew up with.
Yeah.
It's like chitlins are. From what I know, it's like intestines, man.
Okay.
And Italians had tripa, which are the stomach lining. It's
Well, I
it's
think-
basically poor person's food, and every culture has
Okay,
that
okay.
soul food.
Well-
It's like polenta is cornmeal, grits is rice. It's like
So what
that
would-
thing that you eat in the morning, cream of wheat.
Sure.
Right,
So
so
what
it's
would
like every culture has their soul food, right? But they call it something different.
What
Their
would
comfort
Ukrainian
food.
be? Then it'd be like pierogies then for Ukrainians?
No, what is
Borscht? There
what
you
is
go.
the poor food that Ukrainians will eat?
There's only two. There's sauerkraut and potatoes, so pick one.
Oh, potatoes for sure.
Yeah.
Just like
I
the
love
Irish.
sauerkraut, though. I love it.
Every culture will have like their root foods,
Sure.
like roots, cheap, anything that's cheap,
Okay.
not expensive cuts of meat, right?
Okay.
Anyway,
So
like
this
greens.
Is, so this
or-
is grits.
Like I think.
so why did we bring this up
think
in the
It's
first
kind of
place?
weird how he like jumps.
Wait a
into the
second.
dumps.
Why did we bring up soul food?
I don't know, but let's just focus on
Okay,
let's
so-
focus on the art.
It's like he jumps. in.
You're gonna get a million calls for
Yeah,
this
I
one.
know.
Dad.
How dare you?
Stop talking over
Soul
me.
food.
Respect your youngers.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like he jumps into the dumpster.
Okay.
Or a truck, and then he comes out 3 seconds later for no apparent reason. Like why didn't he jump into the truck anyway?
I think it's to touch base with the security guard driver guy. Then he
But-
went back out.
Yeah, to
Why
make
don't
sure
they-
everything's
why
okay. He
can't
wanted to
they
make sure it
afford,
wasn't
like,
crazy.
Can
But
they
let's-
afford walkie-talkies or something? Hello, Quasar.
No,
Okay,
but,
well,
but
let-
I'm going to tell you what I did at the cafe before we came here. And I
I'm
was
trying to get back on track.
no,
go ahead.
but this is back on
We
track.
don't care about cafe.
No,
before
but
you
no,
came
this is
here.
important because this is what I'm going to talk about. This is
Okay.
exactly. I'm going to talk about nothing but the comic right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
So we're at the cafe and I'm rereading the comic
Okay.
on my phone.
Well, I thought your daughter was reading it to you.
Well, she was reading it to me, and
Okay.
and then I was trying to read, and I go, no, this is
Hey,
like
Luna.
I'm confused by a lot.
Okay.
There's too many
Hang
things
in
going
there.
on.
Okay.
Then Jared was there, and he gave me the Cole's notes for this comic.
Okay, he found the summary.
Yeah, he found the summary, and so I
This is
read
today?
This is today.
Okay.
And so I'm reading the summary and going, oh, oh, okay.
Okay.
But even the summary had a lot of things going on.
Sure.
So what it is Spider-Man sees, he doesn't see Quasar at first, right? Because Quasar is like hidden on this truck, and there's a criminal in the truck that he's kind of...
there's Nitro's in the truck.
Nitro's in the truck, and he's escorting, Quasar's escorting the truck. So Spider-Man senses something's wrong, finds out everything's A-okay, takes off back to class. Quasar continues to move on, but then what's his name? The
Lightmaster.
Lightmaster shows up out of nowhere.
Another
Wait.
Decides to use Quasar's wristbands,
Quantum bands,
power to help him solve a situation that he has to deal with.
Sure.
There was also this strange thing where Quasar creates this drill screw that drills into the ground.
Right.
That exposes a cave of some kind. Like a hideout, a lair.
It's a laboratory beneath the lawn, yes.
Right.
And this is where he runs into Lightmaster.
Right. And then that's where the Lightmaster... But what happens to Nitro? What happens to all that jazz?
He basically just... He's still in that truck. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Okay. So Lightmaster... I'm trying to just get the synopsis here. And then Lightmaster and Quasar have this battle out over... equipment and stuff, and then Spider-Man comes back from his mathematics class or whatever the hell it is, and ultimately help this guy become a person again.
Right.
And then Spider-Man hits him on the head, and because he had a sixth sense, and he takes off, and then Quasar's like, "What's up with that guy?" So that's really the story.
Sure.
Okay. But I was saying, as a person that doesn't read it, because there was like, where did this guy come in? What happened to this guy? And that's what confused me, because ultimately, after I read the synopsis, everything came together.
Yes.
Right? So for a person that wasn't familiar with a lot of these characters, I was going, why is this guy coming in? Why is that guy coming in? What the hell's going on here? I think that was a little blurry. It wasn't blurry for you when you first read this thing?
No, but I have another question that I didn't realize at the beginning. So, like, when Spider-Man's, like, doing his web thingy, he's like, Spider-Man swinging around town or whatever.
Sure, that's the theme,
But, like, when he comes to meet Quasar, he says, I have to get to class. Is this, like, before school, or is this, like, his lunch break?
I think, because he's in university, he has different classes. There are different times.
He's in university. It's different.
They have a class at 10 in the morning, then another one at 2, and sometimes you have a bunch of...
So you have, like, some time to have a break.
Right. It can be hours.
Okay, so that means university is better than elementary school.
Well, no, there can be breaks, and then you got to take... a
2-hour class.
It's a lot more difficult.
Sometimes if you have an hour, you could fill it up with, like, you go to the library or...
But here's my question, getting back to the art for a second. Now, I give my comics to some of my friends, and these are people that read, like, T.S. Eliot, and they read these comics, and they cannot understand them. And trust me, sometimes when I go back and read these old ones, I'm like, did I miss something? Where did this guy come from? I know what you mean. And I think it's because the artwork is good, it is clear, but it's like the art is telling the basic story, but the text is trying to fill in so much that I'm not saying that you skim
it overcomplicates
read, but it's kind of like you go, like, you shouldn't have to... I'm not saying you shouldn't have to concentrate, but it's like they make you work too much sometimes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's like when people are teaching... I'm not a Shakespeare expert, but you should see the play first. It's something that's meant to be seen.
That's
right?
a good point.
And but when people when teachers will go, okay, pull out your book, and then they start you're reading and you're like, what is this? I'm confused. But it's meant to be seen. So maybe a good idea for beginners is to peruse the comic and kind of just peruse it without concentrating too much on this verbiage. I mean, sometimes I fight. Sometimes I'll read a comic you give me and go, well, they need kind of an explanation at the beginning. Maybe a crazy move for me would have been to read the synopsis first. Yeah. And then read the comic book. Because it is like Shakespeare, man. There's a lot of garbage going on.
Here's a quick example. As Quasar's flying through the air, enveloped in a nimbus of gravity-defying force, Quasar is propelled forward by hypersonic speed. Now, that's something you don't need to put in, but putting that in, doesn't it make it more enjoyable to read, Monty?
It gives it a bit more action, because, sitting in a car with security guard is something that a normal police guy would do.
Okay.
If he's sitting in the car with the police guard, hey, he's 2 feet ahead of us. But keep driving.
But adding in that extra caption, does that make it more enjoyable? Look at see where he's got the screw here, intently visualizing a giant drill bit Quasar transforms the energy at his command into a glowing facsimile.
I think these guys sometimes they write well, and they're like they wish they could be DS. Like,
At least
they want to write
least-
the great American novel,
Yeah.
but this is their job, and so they're trying to put like little things for the thing that I'm gonna write my
But
darndest,
at least-
Yeah, my
like T.S.
darndest.
Eliot or whatever.
At least they explain it.
Right.
Where comics now, they don't explain it at all. They're just like, he just throws the batarang. They don't even say Batman throws the batarang.
Well, there's got to be a middle ground.
They just say, yeah.
There's like
I hear
automatopoeias all over the
And
place.
also, go to the first page for a sec. It says,
Page 1.
the hot mid-afternoon of air spreads a blanket through
Of lethargy.
lethargy through Manhattan's usual hustle and bustle. Everything seems to move in slow motion. Everything that is except the inexhaustible Spider-Man. Like he's just swinging off his web. Like, is there someone before that? Like,
But that's what he does. He flops around.
Meanwhile, Spider-Man swinging from a web. Why?
Because that's what he does. That's how he travels. He doesn't walk.
That's how he travels around town, yeah.
I guess if it was Superman flying in and outside of the
Yeah,
buildings.
What if he can
and-
walk? And
Well,
He can
they
walk.
just say,
Here's the thing,
he's
though.
a fake.
My
He's
question, though,
walking.
is that little introduction that you just read, I love the way writers did that. Like, even when you watch the old cartoons, like the ones that narrated by Stan Lee that you like so much, like they'll be like, nighttime in New York City on the docks, and they'll set the scene with the
Right.
description, a city of 8 million people, night, I say, or whatever.
Yeah.
But doesn't that kind of, I enjoy that. It's not great narration.
I think that if he
explains
was
it.
reading it to me, I would enjoy it more. But I think the problem maybe when I'm looking at it, because of also society makes some people impatient than they used to be when reading comics. Or even reading anything for that matter. But you see panels, and you see panels down here, and you kind of just, I want to get to this.
Yeah.
I want to get to that. Because you see ahead what's there.
Sure,
and it's almost
that's a
like
good
you want to
point.
skip over
and
this
there's
stuff.
no other medium that's like that.
Right,
None.
and so you're the patience is for me is like, okay, let me get through this. These guys are trying to make it flowery and
Yeah.
really make it wonderful and explain, but it's a catch-22 because some of the comics you gave me during the reboots almost had no dialogue. I was
Yes.
like, what is this? I'm
That
like,
is called-
flopping through pages and going
Right.
like, there's like 5 words
That's
here.
called decompression. That's the way comics are done now. And they take
Like-
1/5 of the time to read. You zip through it, and
It's
it's like,
terrible.
You feel like
Speaking of,
but there's got to be a middle ground.
Right.
But I don't know what
speaking
that
of
is.
like zero, like 3 words. Like you were giving me all those Batman comics,
Right.
And like I found like the 0 year. I'm like interested in this title, so I get into the thing, and he says this isn't Gotham City anymore, and then he finishes his sentence on the next page. He finishes it on the
Okay.
next page. It takes up a whole page with 3 words. It says
Waste of
Gotham
space.
City isn't Gotham City anymore.
Wasted paper, global warming.
Yeah, there you go.
It says,
Exactly.
Gotham City isn't Gotham City anymore. It takes up a whole page.
Well,
Takes up
you know,
you know,
it's like a movie poster.
next
It's
Let
like,
me just
page.
point out one thing.
The next page, we're in the 0 year. The calendar is changed.
And then it's
We
the
don't
next
have
page?
February, March, and April. We have glory.
He is my
glom,
son. He's veering off
and
into
glebe.
oblivion.
So
That's like I
just
do.
want to say one thing. No, that's a good point. But I think the perfect balance is probably in the mid to late 60s by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Okay,
They would have 4 to 6 panels per page. And they would have limited amount of text and limited captions. But you would zip through the page because you're right. It's like as soon as you see that, you just want to go, oh, boom, boom, boom,
Right.
Boom.
You just want to
Boom.
get through it.
But maybe do you think even for something like this that a nice little this is sacrilege, but maybe a little synopsis for the story so that you can enjoy the story more, like.
At the beginning?
Well,
Yeah, it's like a Shakespeare because you want to just kind of look at the pictures and because
Well-
it's a catch-22 because they're it's like looking at a panel for a film, right? And you could tell that some panel artists for filmmakers they're so detailed and so it's almost like looking at a comic book. And then when you look at a comic book, sometimes you see that these artists they almost like are trying to make a movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this isn't necessary. It's almost like they're making shots for films.
It's
And the middle ground, it's like this big gray area where comic books comic book movie, or even when in the 70s when movies started becoming something, and then the 80s they figured out how to make big money from movies.
Right.
That comic books all of a sudden became that. Right? It's like movie panels. So there's the middle ground is lost. It's like, what's more important? The dialogue or the art? What makes a comic book a comic book? The art.
yeah.
Right? And story would be nice.
Man.
Dialogue could be limited because really it should just be like balloon panels, right? And it could say, meanwhile in on the other side of town.
I think there's
less description because the description is there in the picture.
I think if we ever have you guys back again, I'd like to cover some stuff by Will Eisner, who did The Spirit in the 40s, or Jack Kirby or Scott McCloud, because I think they understood the perfect balance between art, description, and dialogue. So that's something we can do next time. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about the art really quick. You said you like the art.
I like it, yeah.
Monty,
Well,
did you like the art?
I like the art. Just two things I have to say quick.
Okay.
I thought this guy was
15.
the Lightmaster, and then he turns into Quasar.
It was a little bit confusing because I had to go back because what happened is Lightmaster, when Quasar was fighting Lightmaster earlier, he actually starts to narrate. Look, he's like, his energy crawling up my arm. I'm going numb all over. That's all. They don't explain it, but Lightmaster has taken him over, but they don't explain it. So it's a little bit confusing because I know that's what you're saying, right?
Another thing is like,
Okay.
I could skip through this whole comic and still know the whole story. Like, I was at page 17,
Okay.
18, 19, and 19. I'm like, this is getting pretty boring. I skipped a few pages and I knew the entire 3 pages.
Okay, that's a fair criticism. So you're saying you could skip a whole section but still know exactly what happens?
Yeah.
So if an editor came in and it was a film, they'd say, we don't need this to here to here, we
cut
can
it
go
out.
straight to here. Then it would be a 1-minute movie. But you got to also remember, they're going to say, we got to fill up 22 pages. And sometimes they'll put in what's called filler.
Yeah.
And that's the reality for whether it's a comic book or a TV show or a movie.
This is something I learned as a kid when I was reading comics. I read so many. If I could skip a page, sometimes you skip a page by accident because they stick together.
Yeah.
If I could skip 2 pages and still follow what's going on, that meant there was a problem. Every page should have something happen that changes
absolutely.
it so drastically. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? That's ideal, right? But sometimes it doesn't happen.
Right.
So
I'm suspecting that's if that occurs in these things, it's because of but then that could have been more space for advertising. Is there a standard usually?
Well, at this time, 22 pages, yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, so they have to fill 22.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we also are limited for time. I just want to quickly say this was written by Mark Grenwald, drawn by Herb Trimpe, inked by Mike Esposito. This is Marvel Team Up
Esposito.
number 113. So my final question is, Marshall, what do you rate this comic and do you recommend it out of 10?
Shucks.
Shucks.
I don't recommend it at all, but
Okay.
I will say that some of the drawings are really fun to look
Okay.
like, really great. Like I look at some of these things in a lot of comics, the older ones, the imagination, the dynamics. I want to frame some of these things
Sure.
because they're just so wonderful to look at. Story wise, it didn't really bring me anywhere. I didn't care. There were some interesting things like what is this? But just for only a moment, and most of the time it was just frustrating.
Okay.
Yeah. But so I would say out of 10, not 0.
What do you give the art? The art's not a 0.
Okay. Then I would give the art a 3. So
Okay.
I mean, out of the 10, when it comes to story, art, and just the whole thing, then the 2 combined.
Sure.
Art, if I could do it this way, art out of 10.
Sure.
Then I would say that to me, I like it. It was like a 7.5.
There you go. I was going to say 7 or 8 for art.
Yeah.
Story, maybe 6. Not as good.
Yeah, story you can take it or leave it, which is not like it's a 5 is like you pass or you don't pass.
Right.
I'm not going to say someone shouldn't see it, but for me it's not for me.
Did you have any other important notes to talk about, Monty?
No, but I
Okay.
do have a recommendation.
Okay.
Out of 10, I believe it was a 50 below 0. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. It's a piece of crap.
Oh, really? It's a piece of crap.
Yeah.
So you didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
What about the art? You didn't like the art at all?
The art was nice. I agree with my dad. It was about 7.5.
And the story, -50.
-50.
-50. So all those comic books I'm giving you, are you enjoying any of those, or do you want any more?
I like those comic books. I think they're pretty nice. Like, at least they make a teeny bit more sense.
You know what? Hey, listen. Here's something. I would like to make a suggestion out there to a corporation. It's called IKEA.
Okay.
If I may. They have these wonderful frames, and then you could put album covers in.
Okay.
Make some frames for comic books. Because some of these covers
Yeah,
are so
IKEA
wonderful.
makes some
I would
frames
just
for
I would
comic
love to go to
books.
IKEA and buy like 10 of these frames and just put some of these, like some of the comic books you gave the kids. I'm like, what a wonderful cover, man.
Sure.
Like, what a fun, dynamic cover. Whether you like the stories or not, they're just so much fun. And
Sure.
the artists, and sometimes they'll have different artists for the covers, right? Like,
Yep.
and then you'll open it up and go, where the hell's the
Yeah.
fun? So that, to me, would, like, the art of some of these covers are so fantastic that I just want to just put them in a frame and just,
I'm with you.
you know? So IKEA, get on that.
So
Yeah, IKEA, you better make those comic book frames.
So that wraps up this episode of QUASAR QUA-NOLOGY. Thank you again for joining us. We'll definitely have you guys back on again. Hopefully Luna will join us next
No,
time.
hopefully not.
Okay. So thank you again for joining us for QUASAR QUA-NOLOGY. We'll see you guys again next Wednesday. Where can they listen to this?
Spotify and what? iTunes.
You got it.
iTunes and Spotify.
Okay, see you guys
iTunes
next
and
week.
Spotify.
All right.
Peace out.